Hey everybody, Matt Fury here at Sundance once again. You know, we're out here meeting a lot of new people, but then again, every now and then there's a face that seems somewhat familiar. And I gotta say, sir, I feel like I've seen you here before. Joining me today is editor Joseph Krings. He's here with a project called Winner. But I feel like we've talked many a time before in the past. Joseph, how many times have you been to Sundance with a project?
The number, oh boy. Okay.
I put you on the spot, I know,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, but it's 9 total films. 9 total films, but I think I've been here 8 times.
Okay.
So 8 years, 9 films.
Okay, I definitely want to talk about Winner, but everybody wants to get into Sundance. Everybody wants to be attached to a project that makes it to Sundance. You seem to be the Sundance whisperer. How do you find these projects? What is it that's in the water there in New York that gets you here 8 to 9 times?
I have no idea except to say that, you know, once you do one, then people say, oh, you know how to do Sundance, and then they keep hiring you. I was lucky. My first project was a micro-budget movie, but it played in the next category here. And that was with a director named Matt Ross. It was 28 Hotel Rooms. And then he went on to do Captain Fantastic. So I got to come again for that one. And then the hits just keep coming.
Well, you hope they do. Okay, so this year's project, Winner. I haven't seen it yet. I have to say I don't get out and see movies here at Sundance because I'm a little busy. Tell us about Winner.
Winner is a biopic, essentially, of the real-life story of reality Winner, who is the woman most known for leaking a document to The Intercept about Russian interference in the 2016 election. She was then sentenced to the longest sentence ever under the Espionage Act for leaking a single document, when many other people have gotten off pretty much scot-free. She was really made an example of, and so it's the story of her life, really, how she came to be the person she is, what motivated her to do what she did, and what happened after she did what she did. And it's a fun take on it. It's sort of a black humor, you know, a black comedy. A lot of it's gallows humor, you would say. They talk about gallows humor in the movie, and we've tried to bring that forward to not make it this, you know, politically charged, important movie, but to make it a human movie that'll make you laugh a lot while terrible things are happening.
Sounds like my kind of movie.
Great.
All right, so we've established that you are a magnet for Sundance projects. How did this particular project find its way to you?
Well, that was just, it's word of mouth, you know, it's like who you know. The director is Susanna Fogel, and I hadn't worked with her previously, but when she was looking for an editor for this project, she talked to Harry Yoon, who I'm sure you've talked to in the past. Harry Yoon's a great editor, and a friend, and she was looking for somebody, and she said, who do you think would be able to handle this tone and type of material, this complicated, tricky balance of humor and tragedy we're trying to do? And Harry was nice enough to recommend me, so the process began. We had a Zoom call, and then it was a marriage made in heaven, I guess.
I guess it was. So when you're talking to a director for the first time about a project, any kind of project, what are the things that you as an editor want to know or be comfortable with before you take the gig?
Well, it starts, I guess, with the idea behind the movie, so that generally reveals itself within the script. But the script is just a document, and you're filling it in however you think it's going to be. You don't really know what that's going to be. So then you have to talk to the director and say, well, what's your approach to this material? Now, without getting into too deep of a backstory, she already had some work done on this. She had been working on it, and there was a cut, and I came in. So we were able to have the advantage of, I knew kind of where they were, and she told me what she wanted more from it, and we really clicked on that. I was like, I gave her my ideas, she gave me her ideas, and then it's sort of just like feeling each other out, right? Like you're going to be stuck in a room for a very long time with each other, and you're going to be trading ideas, and you kind of have to look for a symbiosis or like a comfortable back and forth, you know, because if you don't have that, it's going to be very hard to achieve anybody's vision, you know. So you have to make sure you're on the same page, you're sharing ideas, you're open to each other's ideas, you're just looking to make sure that it's a comfortable fit, you know. And
so where did you edit this project?
It was in New York City, I did it. Okay. Yeah.
In a facility, or is this one of those work at home and remote to somebody else?
No, this was in a facility, Jack's Media. They make their own shows, and I had done a show there called The Pentaveret with them, and that they produced. And they produce a lot of comedies. But I loved their facility so much, I asked if I could come back, and they were happy to rent us a room, and it was really terrific.
So whether you're renting a room at Jack's or you're working somewhere else, what is the editorial setup that you need in terms of, I kind of know that you're using Avid, but what do you like to have there in terms of how you monitor, both in terms of video and audio, how you do, some editors are very particular about where the couch is for the director.
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty particular setup at this point. I always work at a standing desk. I never go up and down. I just stand, and I stand on like a boogie board, so I keep my balance going throughout the whole day. But more interestingly, I now have gotten into using a special monitor, a Wacom Cintiq Pro, that you can write right on the screen. It's just a giant tablet, and I really have fallen in love with using that. So I make sure that gets set up on every project. So I, have a typical 2-monitor setup, except one of my monitors is this special monitor, and I love it because I can touch it with my fingers. If I don't have the pen in my hands, I can use both hands. I can, so like mixing, I can have the mix board up there and be doing stuff right on the screen. I can click around like this, or if I have a pen, I can do it with the pen, and then I keep a regular Wacom down here too, so I never touch a mouse. But that's kind of the only thing I really need. Every room's different in its shape and size. I like to set it up different ways. That's always playing around. But then, of course, you have a big monitor for the director or anybody else who might come into the room. I stand at the desk and I work, and I get very intent in the work. But I like to also have the couch separate somewhere where then I only see the TV, and I like to go over and, I have a remote set up so I can hit play and just see it, in a like a person at home would be watching it, or in a movie theater, and get that experience. So I'm not just like tied into the monitors and the equipment. I can sort of have two separate spaces, the working space and then the viewing space. So I'm only thinking about it intellectually, not technically,
I think a common refrain we've been hearing here at the festival is filmmakers, whether they're editors or composers, are meeting their colleagues on the project for the first time here at the festival. And it seems like it's often the case on an indie project where everyone is sort of separate and just sort of communicating via email, and media is being handed off, and there isn't really that camaraderie of being together in the facility. Was that the case for you? And is that, if it wasn't for Winter, is that something you feel like is pretty common in an indie project?
Well, nowadays, it's the post, all the people working in post can be in different places and doing their stuff, work from home, whatever, remoting in and using the same media, doing all that. But I always prefer to get everybody that's working in the edit together. In this case, it's a pretty small crew. It's just me, one assistant editor, and the director. And we just went at it like that every day, but we always worked in the room together. The assistant right across the hall, have her come in, watch stuff with us. I never get to meet the production crew. So that's always fun when you get here and you get to meet these people for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, you shot that, or you made this effect work or whatever, that type of stuff. That's always great to see them here. Hopefully I get to meet the mixers and the composers along the line. The composers usually are somewhere else, so I don't really get to meet them in person too often. That's a lot of communication, but usually get to meet them here, and that's always fun. Yeah.
Well, we've talked a lot, and clearly we've talked a lot because you use Avid on a lot of projects, otherwise we probably wouldn't talk so much. It'd be kind of awkward. What is it about that system that, what features or functionality, anything about that nonlinear editor that you keep going back to for these kind of films?
Well, I mean, it's just like home, basically. I started on it, the first time I ever learned how to edit was on an Avid Express in the 90s. My college had just gotten one for the first time, and I was graduating college, but I got to do some work in an Avid system for the first time, and then that's when I realized, it's like, oh, this part is fun. I had just been doing tape-to-tape editing before that, and if I'd ever had to do that again, it would have been too soon. But I realized that once I had the flexibility to work non-linearly and move things around and be as destructive as I wanted to be, and then rebuild things, that just flipped the switch for me, and I realized that that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go direct. I didn't want to be on set. I wanted to be in the room with the equipment solving problems. And so Avid was my first love, right? And I've flirted with other systems, but I always come back because it's the most comfortable. I mean, like, I've been using it for so long. The functionality is really great. I was just talking to you before we did this interview about how much I actually like to do effects in Avid. You know, a lot of people say, like, you know, you can't do really great effects or whatever, but I have a lot of fun with the effects in there. Whether it's fluid morphing things or, you know, doing crazy comps and tracking motion and all of that stuff, and using Animat, it's kind of fun to play with all that. But the real winner of everything when it comes to Avid is trimming. Yeah. Asymmetrical trimming. If I ever start a company, I want to call it Asymmetrical Trim.
I think we can let you do that. I don't see any lawsuit happening out of that. You know, in an indie project, it seems like sometimes the time is tight, budgets are tight, the roles you're being asked to fill. Sometimes you're being asked to do a little more than you might do on a larger project where there's more people and more clearly defined roles. Do you find that on an indie project you are leaning in more to other aspects of the film than just picture cutting?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if that depends on the level of the project. I just like to get involved in everything as much as I can. So particularly sound design and that sort of work. I want to right away from the first cut have something that really sounds good. And so I do a lot of that work right in there, and scoring, you know, putting in temp score and playing with all that. I've never been really on a project where the music editor is working with you side by side. I would love to do that at some point, like take some of that work aside. But I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I want to do everything. But I work with the assistant. In this case, it was Susanna Kalb. She did a great job. She would do a lot of the sound design. You know, hand it off to them, make it good. They make it good, and then I tweak it, you know. And then, like I said, I like playing around with the VFX. I mean, what I do is never becomes the final look of it, but I want to know that it works. I don't want to just trust that it's going to be okay. Yeah. You know, I need to put the images together and see them play. And yeah, sure, on larger projects, like, you can get more back and forth sometimes during the actual edit with the sound design team, and we have to kind of do that all on our own.
The way you describe this film and calling it kind of a black comedy would indicate to me that finding the right tone was going to be a little bit difficult, but rather than put words in your mouth, I'm just going to ask you, what was the most challenging aspect of working on Winner?
It was exactly that, just really trying to find that tricky balance of tone, you know. And that's something you can only do by playing around, experimenting, trying things, showing it to other people, seeing how you feel about it. You really got to play it when you're looking for laughs, you know, you really got to play it in a room to see that they're laughing where you want them to laugh, you know. There's always places where I wish there was laughs. I'm always the one laughing at one particular thing that I fall in love with and nobody laughs, and sometimes I have to give that up, you know. But for this, that was definitely the case, and, you know, it was having a fun tone in this movie, but also respecting that these are real life people, and we're handling their story sometimes in an irreverent way, but we had to always make sure that there's a truth to it, you know. But that's more like real life, you know. But it's really, you can only just do that by just staying at it, like going, you know, putting your head down and keep trying until it really feels right.
Well, I know there's no real way you can explain how it is that you always seem to be here with the Sundance Project. You know, I guess it's just a good thing that you are. I guess I should say goodbye, but at the same time, I feel like I'll just see you again next year anyways. Yeah. So rather than say goodbye, I'll say thank you for talking to us, Joseph Krings. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. We got to keep meeting like this.
I think we do, and I'm sure we will. His name's Joseph Krings. The film is Winner, and again, check back next year for what he's doing here again, because he's never going away. Hopefully, you don't go away either. We got a lot of great content coming up on Avid social media channels. So stick with us.